Welcome to the Creepin' It Real show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it and like us on Facebook at the Creepin' It Real show. Do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share with us? You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. Hello, everybody. This is 1/3 of your host, Christy, and I would like to formally welcome you to the Creepin' It Real show. Joining me is Moni from SoCal. How are you doing?
You sounded like you weren't sure. You were like, joining me is somebody I vaguely know. I'm good. It wasn't 90 plus degrees today, so I'll take it. It's pretty nice for a summer day, even though I've spent most of it inside.
Very nice. And also joining us is the man who's melts thousands of earbuds on women across the United States
Earbuds,
and in Canada and Australia. Apparently, we're really big in Canada and Australia. So, ahoy, matey, and hey, mate, and whatever else. I guess ahoy, matey is more of a pirate slang more than like a country. Just ignore me. Yardley, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I can't complain. I'm breathing, and the Hawks are winning, so life is good.
Okay, isn't that fantastic? Hopefully they won't follow suit of our football team that usually blows it whenever they get this far and shit. So,
it's funny. Well, the football team had expectations. Like the Hawks are like, nobody had any expectations, so it's just fun. But yeah, it's been fairly nice weather here in Georgia, so you can take it when you can get it,
Absolutely. Great, enjoyable moments now that everything's opening up and our sports ball teams are winning and birds are singing and the sun is...
Yay, the sports.
Woo!
Woo, the balls.
Well, on this episode, and it's probably a little confusing on the title, is San Junipero possible? And by that I mean, or will it ever be possible? Will we or could we upload our consciousness, our souls, whatever you want to call it, to a computer and basically live forever? And I don't know why I've been driving a lot and traveling a lot, and my brain likes to totally wander. And that thought came to me, and I just thought this would be an interesting discussion. And I wonder if people have discussed it online. And guess what? They have. So we are going to discuss the show itself, that episode from Black Mirror, and then talk about what people's opinions are about a San Junipero. Isn't that how you say it? Junipero? Am I spelling?
So.
That's why
Sure.
I think so. Okay. Anyway, so where would you guys say that episode ranks on your Black Mirror list? Like, would you say it's in top 3, top 10? What's your...
Wasn't that like season 3 or 4 or something like that? It wasn't like the first couple. I don't...
No. Yeah, it was like 2 or 3, I believe. 4, wasn't the 4 the Miley Cyrus one? I don't know. I don't know how many seasons there are.
Yeah.
Season 3, episode 4.
Yeah. There we go.
But we're so far removed from that. Like I would probably have to revisit it. Definitely probably be in my top 5, maybe. I don't know about top 3, but definitely in top 5, because there's been a bunch of Black Mirror episodes, and most of the ones that I definitely remember the first season. That was probably the one that people talk about the most as probably being the best. So I know some of my others, but it's definitely in the top 5. I remember when I watched it, it was one of the best episodes of that particular season. Because we talked, I think we talked about the episode, but it was like all of the episodes that was in the season. Yeah. So, but I don't think we spent a lot of time on San Junipero.
Right. What do you think, Moni?
Yeah, I would say top 5. You know me, I like the messed up stuff, and it was obviously not the most, scary or messed up one of all, but I still enjoyed it. And my husband, it's like his favorite. He's like, that might be one of my favorite episodes of favorite things of all time. I'm like, okay, calm down. But yeah, no, it was really different, which was nice. And, I mean, Black Mirror is not supposed to just all be scary, I guess. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it ranks on my top 3. They threw us a bone for this episode and made it a positive. There was some, of course, adversity in it, but like at the end, it wasn't soul crushing like most of the episodes are. And every time I've ever recommended watching it, I've always recommended that episode for the people that I know aren't really hardcore messed up like we are. Cause I'm like, yeah, the more fucked up, the better. So I try to like gently, I wouldn't recommend episode 1 of Black Mirror to people first starting out because it is so completely off the chain.
That still messes with me. I'm just wow.
But that's what got everybody to keep like, you're talking about the pig? You're talking about, yeah, it's like, sorry, Puddin', you're gonna die because I ain't smashing no pig.
Right? But like, normally the rest of them are technology has fucked with you. That one, yes, is a kind of technology, but it's more about, I don't know. That one, I was like, what the hell? So anyway, I try to like, okay, the people that I know could really get into it, but need a ramp into the messed up ones. Like I recommend they watch that episode first and then work themselves into the more crazier stuff, because getting it right off the bat, if you're a certain type of person like we are, sure. But some people are like, what the fuck? So anyway, we're going to move on, but I just wanted to so we're going to do a quick rundown of what this episode is. It's basically, I'm asking, will Black Mirror, or is it going to be possible in the near future? The Black Mirror episode titled San Junipero has gone down as one of Black Mirror's most epic stories about 2 women who get a second chance at life and love at the end of their lives when they get to decide if they want their souls to upload to a virtual city called San Junipero that is perpetually stuck in the 80s. One is all for the transition, but the other struggles with living forever and also commitment in general. So I think it's funny because I think what relates us to this episode is these women are in the future, but they're our age. Like, if like this is us in that future. So if you go back to the 80s, like when we're all kids, like that's kind of our jam. Like, that's something that would bring up a lot of nostalgia for us. So being a young adult in the 80s, like I could totally see, Gen Xers really digging the whole, like going back to the 80s and living forever, or the 90s. I don't know. But so that's kind of where you kind of understand it's in the future, but it's where our age would be in the future. This being one of my favorite episodes, randomly thought one day that if I could ever be possible, or if it is right now. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to tackle ways or ideas behind it and decide if that's what we do if given the option. But first, this is kind of an interesting tidbit about the episode that I thought, since it's Pride Month, that it would be something interesting to talk about. Is this episode is labeled as the quietly radical Black Mirror episode that stole our hearts. This is from Vulture magazine. It says San Junipero may not be the best episode of Black Mirror or even the most exciting. Those accolades belong to the USS Callister, a rip-roaring suspense thriller that kicked off its fourth season, functioning as both an anti-nostalgia treatise and a condemnation of creepy, all-powerful men. Yet San Junipero is certainly the sweetest and most romantic story in the British anthology series, which is famous for being anything but.
Yeah.
Every time I say serious, my Siri comes on. So I always take a pause and close it down because it starts recording me. Vulture has published a new oral history of the episode, which trailed the star-crossed union of outgoing Kelly and timid Yorkie and quickly became a cultural phenomenon. Kelly is played by, I am so sorry, I'm going to completely butcher her name, Gugu Matha-Raw. And then Yorkie, what's that? Do you know how to say it?
Yeah, I think it's Juju Matha-Raw.
Juju Matha-Raw. Juju Matha-Raw. Thank you. That sounds much better than what I was trying to say. And then Timid Yorkie is played by Mackenzie Davis, and they quickly become a cultural phenomenon. The two women meet in a technologically rendered 1980s-style Neverland, where anything and everything is possible. Heaven is a place on earth, which is, of course, the big soundtrack.
Yeah.
But where the pitfalls of human behavior, aka emotional unavailability and stubborn hesitation, are just as omnipresent. As fans of Black Mirror are already well aware, the show is notorious for its commitment to plunking its characters into hellish, horrific scenarios and essentially watching them squirm. Because of this, which is its own Black Mirror, if you think about it, us watching Black Mirror is a Black Mirror episode. Because of this, the subtle empathy and optimistic ending of San Junipero are rendered all the more impactful. Audiences noticed, ended up taking home 2 Emmys, one for Outstanding Television Movie and another for Outstanding Writing for a Limited Series, movie or dramatic special for creator Charlie Brooker. The reception of the episode has been such an education on my own blind spots as a straight woman, Davis said. I could never anticipated what a healthy biracial love story in which neither character dies could mean to those who had experienced a death of positive depictions of their identities. I think it's the very thing that attracted me to the story in the first place. When I read it and while we were making it, there was never a hint of discussion about it being a gay love story. It was a love story in which 2 complete characters with rich histories find each other during a second chance at life, period. Considering the general mood of the series and the nightmarish global political context of which the 2016 episode was released, the story's intimacy and modest vulnerability make it a work of quiet radicalism. Its central lovers can be shy for sure, and it takes a while for Kelly to come around to the idea of commitment, but the couple are never ashamed of the love blossoming between them, and there's no reason for them to be. So that's, I thought, such a cool conversation about the episode, because you're right, like, it kind of reminds me of Schitt's Creek in that way, where there's obviously gay relationships, but there's no conversation about it. Mm-hmm. It's just, it kind of helps create such a great commonplace about that, instead of there always being like this trauma and stress about the situation, quietly just making it so. And, you know, of course there's other traumas and other tribulations, but not about them being gay. So those are always nice buffers to kind of work in those people that have issues with it, which are stupid. So anyway. So then I started diving down into the actual people's thoughts about the technology and if it's possible. And everybody's got an opinion. So I'm going to do my best to describe some of these, and we can talk about them and what we think about their opinions about it. The first guy is Daniel Fagella, who founded Tech Emergence in 2013. He's interviewed many of the world's leading researchers and corporate executives in the fields of brain-computer interface, artificial general intelligence, biotechnology, virtual reality, and more. And funny thing is, he actually did a TED Talk in 2014 and did a article in 2014 about this very thing before San Junipero, and barely got any traction. And then after San Junipero, all of a sudden they were finding this article in his TED Talk, and it blew up. So he had written about this years before. Nobody gave a shit. And then they watched the movie, and of course he blew up. So, here's his opinions about the whole situation.
Nice.
He said there's some rights and wrongs that he feels like the show portrayed. The technology will probably be resisted by many, kind of like everything else. Like, there's always a subgroup of people that are going to resist anything different or anything that makes sense or anything with science. They think that's scary and whatever. Kelly, one of the girls in the main story, resists the idea of going to a fantasy land after death. As an old woman, she's been widowed and her husband has also died. Her reasoning is similar to what we should expect from humans. So yeah. So there's going to, of course, be a group that want to go to heaven. They don't want to live in a machine. So they'll think it isn't fair to those they loved who died. This kind of heroic going down with my loved ones notion that could be kind of guilt and self-punishment, or a kind of last act virtue, should be expected to be common, especially when technology is still somewhat novel. They won't think it's natural. This will only be an argument when the technology is new. They won't be able to see their already dead relatives. In the wrong section, I'll cover why I think this won't be relevant, but it will indeed be a strong reasoning when this technology is somewhat new. Eternal life would be boring and tormented. Indeed, if our upload scenarios are boring, or our human nature, easily bored, filled with angst, grasping but never holding happiness, remains unchanged in digital afterlife, then eternal life might be torture. The other thing they got right, early simulations will be limited to existing human preferences. I thought this was an interesting situation. He's saying that for Yorkie and Kelly, San Junipero's story in the 80s, it was kind of an ideal time for them. And we get the idea that they were born in the 60s, came into the age of the 80s, and just like our parents and their parents, we are brought to special reverie by memories of our first loved ones that challenges in the world. So this is like their nostalgic dream. He thinks like basically in the beginning, that's going to be the easiest thing to replicate, to put people into as a simulation. And then the other thing that he thinks that they got right is the technology will be damaging and dangerous for living users. I think that we can already see that's happening now without it, like that you have the opportunity to live a better life in a computer. We're already escaping into technology. Look at the pandemic,
Yeah.
So it says, the San Junipero episode, we hear an elder care professional state that they must limit the use of the neutral device that hooks up living patients to the digital experience. While there isn't much of an explanation, we are left with the impression that it is done as a precautionary measure because the effects of using such a neutral device aren't understood well enough at the time. So I don't think we need to really explain too much of that. That's just fun. Here's what he thinks they got wrong. For all that the show did well, I believe that the virtual destination of San Junipero varies from the kind of digital eternity experience that anyone would seriously prefer. I believe quite firmly that upon developing the ability to upload human minds, we will quickly be carried vastly beyond optimized versions of the human experience into new vistas of conscious experience, vastly more blissful and interesting than any human has ever experienced. I can completely agree with that. I mean, I like the 80s, but do I really want to live in that forever?
Yeah, that's true. Let's see.
If you had to pick an era, which one would you pick to live in? Like either one you've lived through or one you haven't lived through? Like,
I don't know. I mean, to live is to suffer, right? And all eras kind of, like, we're not going back to 2016. The 90s weren't perfect. The 80s weren't perfect. Like, where would you go? No. I mean, if you're going to just be like in a nightclub or like somewhere fun, and who cares about the era really, but.
Excuse me, but every era of nightclubs is vastly different music. So what music do you want to listen to for the rest of
music perpetually? I mean, as a 90s girl, I got to get me that grunge, but that's not really nightclub music.
Right. Then live, so you'd be just going to live concerts forever, like Nirvana.
Oh. And somehow your ears don't give out, like you're just perpetually.
No, they don't. You just forever could go to live music. Is that what you would choose? Yeah,
I'm in for it.
Yardley, what era would you choose to move to? Die in?
No, it would. I mean, in my prime, it was like the 90s, like, after you've graduated and you're going to college and then, pretty much the span of the 90s till you get, like your mid to late 20s or whatever. I have to say that was probably my prime. So I would definitely, stick around there. I mean, look, the farther back that I go, unless I'm going far, far back, it's like bad news. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
Fuck the past is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But the 90s, yeah, definitely. Like there's so much good stuff, R&B and just rap and just life.
Oh yeah, the rap was awesome.
So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm just going to stick with what I know, but just being younger.
I getcha. I would say, I mean, I struggle. I would want to visit two eras and I would have to make a decision. Of course, the 90s. Again, I was in my 20s in the 90s and high school. So that's a great, memory. But I would like to be at that age and also check out the 70s because the disco and all the groovy shit that was going on back then. Like, if I could perpetually be at a nightclub, not have to deal with all the adversity and other bullshit that prevalent back in the 60s and 70s and just be in a nightclub. I would have to say that the 70s, I was obsessed with Solid Gold when I was a kid. And so I could totally see me jamming out with my spandex and my headbands and doing some groovy disco shit. So I would need, it would be a tough call for me. I'm pretty big on disco.
I still remember, you remember, like, I still remember, you know, back in those days, like, especially when you're, like before, like basically, yeah, like when people, like, we used to have like beads, like through entrances when you go into the house and everybody had like beads and
crochet, everything and beads.
Yeah. And, you know, cars were like made out of steel leather seats and stuff. Like, I mean, the 70s was like, you know, it was a thing. Definitely and fashion wise, things were taken off in this.
I have owned always in my wardrobe at least 2 pairs of bell bottoms that I wear, and I don't care what style, what season, what the fuck's going on, I'm wearing bell bottoms all the time. And corduroy, I mix everything of my styles have gone in for the last 40 years with disco and hippie. So I feel like I could probably really dig 70s vibes, 70s aesthetic. So, I was born in it. I just didn't have really opportunity to kind of enjoy it. So I would love to check them both out, like go and while I'm still alive and then kind of make my decision because I could if I could like perpetually dance on Soul Train and, Solid Gold, like that would be kind of cool. So. All right. So moving on. So this is what he's saying is, I mean, we won't have to do that, but I just wanted to hear if you had to choose which one if that was the only choice you had when you died, like where you would go. But he's saying that it's kind of narrow-minded, that would be our options, would just be to choose like something we've already lived. Like there's opportunities we could do even more. I mean, look at we could live in a video game simulation, you know, all these cool, crazy looking things that never existed, we could live in. So why would we want to live in something that we've already lived through forever? So he says that, there are only so many sunny tropical island adventures, only so many hot tub experiences with 1994 Nev Campbell before the hedonic treadmill of our condition kicks in, and it isn't good enough anymore. I mean, I can totally see that. He said, look at suicide rates in the first world. Seriously, look. It's the vessel that is flawed. If well-being is the aim, if rich and robust, positive, conscious experience is the goal here, then maintaining the ability to be bored, to be jealous, to be sad, to be angry, to be in a state of always running from angst to another, this would not be heaven to no one. So that's his opinion on that whole possibility and what he thinks they got right and what he thinks they didn't get right. So then the next one is actually Indiana University. It says storage is a big issue, but is solvable. So Indiana University, go Hoosiers, that's my husband's alma mater, did this whole series report, and they ended it with this conversation and with the San Junipero. And in fact, that video that I shared with you guys at the very top, that's a real quick, like, preview of the San Junipero episode, was posted on their page on their website when they start having this discussion. And I just thought it was really good. Quick little, like, reminder of what the whole episode was about. Even if we assume that consciousness is not unique to brains and that it is possible to recreate consciousness on different artificial substrates, uploading people's consciousness on servers does not seem to be economically sustainable, which, as somebody whose husband is an engineer over broadband, like who houses the backup servers for Netflix and Google and all these hospitals and stuff around the country, like, I could totally see how that would be a problem because there's outages all the time, you know. Yeah. What would happen if
your outages of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, oopsie.
You that you've been trying to live in is not available today. Try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what about this? Like, how much help do they have? Like, how many people are qualified to even work on that stuff? You know what I mean? So it's like a burden.
You're going to trust with your life, basically.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally keeping your soul existing in this piece of equipment. And what happens if there's an electric outage? Like, sure, they've got backup. What if it gets bombed? What if there's the end of the world? Exactly. Like, there's so
a program of your soul, Christy, a program.
Yes, but in
copy.
theory, it's you. You know, in theory, it's you in there, your consciousness. So recreating brain functions with current conventional computer architectures does not seem to be possible due to the huge power consumption of these architectures compared to our brains. Our brain consumes around 20 watts of power, and a supercomputer simulating brain functions down to the level of iconic channels would use the entire output power of a nuclear power plant. Holy crap. This is 1 gigawatt of power. Remember, we know what gigawatts are thanks to Back to the Future. This is 1 gigawatt of power for 1 exaflop, a billion operations per second. Running on the Summit, which is the fastest and third most power efficient supercomputer in the world. As of November 2018 now. It's 2021 now, so who knows what the fuck is. But a futuristic world where people can upload their consciousness into humanoid robots and stay in the real world to work and benefit society seems more plausible. You can take a look at a book named Age of M, which is a nonfiction book investigating the consequences of mind uploading. Therefore, a new approach that can emulate brain functions with high speed and low power consumption is needed for such futuristic scenarios. Fortunately, scientists are working on a new approach called neuromorphic computing that reduces the power cost of brain-like computation to much more practical values. IBM, NVIDIA, HP, Google, and Intel are all working on new types of specialized hardware that perform brain-like computation with low power consumption. Interestingly, cell phone manufacturers started using these types of chips to increase their power efficiency of their phones. For example, Phone X uses a similar chip to perform machine learning AI computers that are used in some of its apps. Therefore, the neural prosthetic consciousness side of this episode seems to be far-fetched, but there are emerging chip technologies that could potentially give rise to those brain simulation environments.
So you guys know that Bitcoin, you know, now in 2021, needs like the computers are like, everybody's like, Bitcoin's ruining the environment because the computers need like so much cooling to be able to run the currency. And I'm just saying, like, maybe they're developing something closer to the brain simulations, but obviously sitting here in 2021, we haven't come up with anything that can run something of this size or power efficiently yet. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And funny that you say Bitcoin because I have a friend, my two really good friends farm for Bitcoin online, and they've been doing it for like 4 years now. And they have stumbled upon quite a bit of money doing that. And yes, their computers, they have several, and they have a special room they set up in their basement. It used to be upstairs because they had to insert a cooling system because it gets so hot. And yes, it more than pays for itself. It paid for itself like the first, I think 4 months they had it.
Wow.
And I think they said it cost like $5,000 to set up.
To be fair, some people's brains wouldn't take as much, and then it wouldn't be as hard to run the technology.
Exactly.
So we could just volunteer the right people to start with.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is where we'll kind of get into, okay, some people say we could do it. How do we know they did it, though? This is where we kind of get into a weird conversation of, this number 3, Inverse Magazine did an article where they talked to different people about what their thoughts are about it, that are in, of course, in those industries. And they said, on the surface, it seems pretty far-fetched, uploading our consciousness to a cloud so that we can access a place that doesn't really exist isn't something that we might consider to be plausible. But on a theoretical level, at least, it's possible. In fact, it may even be possible on a practical level, and we are probably not as far away from living in simulated realities as we might think. Let's break the problem down into two major parts: the transfer of our consciousness to a computer and the idea of a robust and realistic live-in simulation that mimics our reality. For transferring our consciousness to a computer to be remotely feasible, not only would we need a computer capable of handling the computational load of our brains, which we've already discussed, and replicating the complicated web of neural connections, we'd also need a method for transferring the parts of our brains that make us who we are into a computer. Our memories, our unique way of processing information, our personal quirks, all into a digital format. These things we don't know about the brain vastly outnumber the things that we do know, making building an artificial brain a tough task. Even so, futurist and Google expert Ray Kurzweil has predicted that we'll be able to do away with the biological part of our existence by 2045. To me, this is fascinating. Meaning that we'll be able to upload our consciousness and may continue living in virtual realities that seem very real in our real reality through non-biological analogs. But as a neuroscientist Michael Hendricks told Vulture, uploading our consciousness to an artificial brain might copy our consciousness, but that copy isn't really us. Okay, so now we're hitting the territory of another Black Mirror episode mentioned before. Yes, mentioned before, which is the USS Callister, where the guy was uploading DNA. He was recreating a person via their DNA and uploading it into his virtual reality computer, which was basically carbon copies of the humans he worked with, but they were not the actual person. And the person had no knowledge there was another one of them existing in a computer. And the uploading being thought that they were the real person. So how do you know if it even worked? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we put our
who
fake.
do you trust to do that for you?
Exactly. So we're like, okay, I'm getting ready to die. Upload me to the computer. So you know you're going to die once you do it. So how do we know that's really you? Because if we did it USS Callister style, those people weren't the real person. It was just
We
a copy.
could all be dead right now, and this could all be like consciousness uploaded. You don't know.
Funny that you say that, because people think that. In San Junipero, Kelly and Yorkie find one another in a simulated reality in which users' minds are uploaded to a sort of cloud. There's the option for doing so temporarily or permanently so that they can actively participate in this reality. The alternate reality is set in a coastal town filled to the brim with dance clubs. Users can choose which era to live in and interact with all the other users in a simulated space, be it at a bar or a more seedy place, Quagmires. Beach houses back right up to the ocean and are impeccably kept. It's a veritable paradise, provided you're looking to escape some kind of pain or suffering in your real life, or if spending an afterlife as simulated reality is your good idea of a good time. Then there's the second level of the question of the plausibility of San Junipero, the simulation itself. Elon Musk has offered up the example of the advancement from Pong to today's sophisticated video games and to virtual reality as it exists now. Even assuming a substantial drop-off in the rate of advancement is not only possible but likely that we'll find ourselves in a position where it will be able to recreate these simulations that mimic reality. And if we're capable of it, it's likely that we'll do it. It's something Nobel Prize winner Professor George Smoot calls artificial realities. If you've scanned someone's mind into a computer, the natural thing to do is make an environment in the computer for the scan to live in. And this is where things get really weird, because they really do get weird when your brain starts to really hurt when you start thinking about this. Because of our natural tendency would be to create these artificial realities and simulations. And the only thing holding us back is processing and programming power. Then the script starts to flip. Smoot's objective was to plant a seed of doubt about our reality as we think and understand it, to prove that we're already living in a simulation, that we ourselves are simulations. It's not a new idea, and it's backed up by probability. Given the sheer number of simulated realities around us, the odds that we are the real world or base reality is overwhelming. The odds that we're living in base reality is 1 in billions, said Musk. We know there are innumerable habitable planets in our universe, and that the odds of other civilizations existing is overwhelming. Smoot points out that it takes some next-level hubris to assume that we are the most advanced among them. And if that's the case, if there are civilizations out there more advanced than us, it stands to reason that one of them has solved the aforementioned ostensibly unsolvable problem. When it comes down to odds, San Junipero isn't just plausible, it's probable. We might all be inhabitants of a server farm full of blinking lights that make up something the base reality known to be as planet Earth simulation. Boom!
Dun, dun, dun. It's probable. You know, I think it is probable. My only thing is, and this is a whole rant, but like, I was told we'd have like flying cars. There is self-driving car technology, but I was told we'd be using them all like regularly by now. I don't know if it's going to happen by like 2045. I thought 2021 seemed like the future, and look at us. We're still like wildfires and can't fucking vote, and you know.
Right?
So we'll see.
Maybe we have a guy running our server who's just really is a sadist and likes to watch everybody suffer. I don't know.
If we're alive for this, like if our bodies were alive to do something like this, you know how obese we're going to become? Like we think we just sit around now with our computers and our TVs and our smartphones. Can you imagine like your body sitting in here, living your life in your head the whole time? That's so weird.
It makes me think of, what's that cartoon? Or I think it's a Pixar movie where they're on the yacht in outer space, and they're all fat, and they're in like those rolling beds that basically they just watch TV. What is it? And then, is it Wall-E? Is that Wall-E? No. What movie is that? Anyway, it's pretty darn right on to this. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we're always saying, there's innumerable amounts of planets. We'd be stupid to say we're the only living beings from all the planets. But if you think about it, there's like innumerable amount of dimensions and everything else. Like, who's to say we're not, like what they're saying, living in a complete simulation of it? But anyway, I thought that was like,
I just want to get drunk and try to say innumerable like 5 times fast. Yeah.
Thank God I didn't make a beverage for this episode. So here's where we get to present day. This company says San Junipero is real, and the company is called Nectum, and they want to upload your brain. Nectum is a company that suggests they're able to upload your subconsciousness to a computer, just like Black Mirror. The episode Black Mirror, which features in which people have choice if they die, they pass on, or you're going to get uploaded. Now the company says they can do that too, but there's no trial period, and you won't come back out the other side alive. So how do you know that it worked? The company aims to be unique amongst those startups heading to a Y Combinator this year, presenting a product that is 100% fatal to its end user. The procedure includes putting the user under with general anesthesia, then filling them up with embalming chemicals. According to MIT Tech Review, Nectum have consulted with lawyers about California's End-of-Life Option Act to make certain they'd be allowed to, murder people for science. They've got a body already. In February of 2018, Nectum purchased a freshly deceased body from the company Ardenitas. Founder Phineas Lepew confirmed with MIT that he did indeed provide the body to Nectum, but would not disclose details about the woman or how much he charged. The woman was used to test Nectum's procedures, but her brain will not be stored in a computer. Instead, it'll be sliced into pieces for further study. Nectum will create technologies to enable whole brain nanoscale preservation and imaging, a vital step towards a deep understanding of the mind, of the brains, and of the brain's diseases. Current brain processing technologies compromise between whole brain applicability or nanoscale resolution. Our technologies will achieve both simultaneously.
Wow.
The company won a federal grant to the tune of $960,000 from the United States National Institute of Mental Health. Their project seems aimed at drug research rather than preserving the minds of humans for upload to a digital paradise for all time. To sign up at this time, this article's publication, 25 people has signed up for Nectum's service they're paying Nectum with a $10,000 deposit. Potential users are apparently able to get a full refund if they change their mind. If you happen to be one of those people, please let me know. No, really, please let me know. I would like to think. Oh, and this person wrote, I'd love to ask you how you think it's reasonable to burden future generations with the responsibility of keeping your brain files in a live server just because you had $10,000 at one point in the distant past. So with that is the biggest question of 1, do you think it's going to be possible? And 2, would you do it? Moni?
I think it's going to be possible. I don't know if it'll be quite as soon as they're going for. And no, I don't think I would do it. I read it's a graphic novel. Fuck, what's it called? It's by Ezra Clayton Daniels, who's a friend of mine, but it's basically about some really brilliant older aging professors who had all kinds of health problems, a really brilliant interracial couple who had helped a lot of people in their lives and done all these things. And they paid some folks all of the rest of their money to make them like physically, like to upload their brains into a new body so that they could be healthy and strong again. Mm-hmm. And the results, the book is brilliant, but the results are horrific, and it's always stuck with me. That's how good the book is. And this reminds me of that, is like, not only you're giving away all your money, and then you're giving away the power over your body, and you can't trust. I mean, even if you can trust a person in that moment, you never know that their situation might change or that something will go wrong, which is what happened in the book originally. And they have no way to make it right, and that's your life. And the only thing worse than death, to my mind, is being stuck somewhere like hell or somewhere like it that you can't get out of. So that's what I put this akin to.
Okay. What about you, Yardley?
Nah. It's like, it's been real, y'all. But yeah, I'm out of here. I don't think that I would do it. And then also, when we were talking about, the people who did the $10,000, deposit. When you're talking about, just like Moni says, like if somebody who's the IT person in control, like if they die and something happens, there's always something that can go wrong. Like number one, and you've probably got to have that bag. Like I don't understand, like, would a bunch of people want to help you out for a little bit of, like, people have to get compensated to go through all this bullshit. And I just don't, you're not making more money if you're dead, or at least most people.
You can't take it with you.
Aren't. Yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, there are some people who have legacies, and there's a way that money can be had in your name, but I don't think that those opportunities people like us would necessarily have. But you're right. I mean, I think that just going on the journey, I think just part of the cycle is rebirth and death and all of those things. And, you just can't, I just don't trust it. Like, just with us and our technology now, we have to worry about hackers and bad actors. Like, there's always got to be something, you know what I mean? And I'm with Moni. Like, if somebody does something foul, I don't want to be in a perpetual state of bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm good, but I'm ready for you to
Christy?
Come around the corner and say, yeah, of course I'll do it. Christy will do it.
Yeah, Christy will do it.
Christy will do it.
I will do it only if there's an expiration date. Like, I wouldn't want to do that forever. I would like to live some more fun and calm down. There's nothing out there. Sorry, my dog's growling, so I'm trying to get her to stop. I would do it for another fun experience to go out, like, but I wouldn't want to relive something I've already done. Like, I would want to go to another planet, quote unquote, or live under the sea, or, be a bird or something more fantastical than that. And I would want to do it for another, give me another 80 years, give me double my life. And then there's a timer, and there's no option for anybody to extend that. That's it. It's just ting, and I'm done. And I'm like, okay, cool. I had such a cool, fun experience of something I'll never get to do, and completely different from my life. I don't want to relive what I've already lived, I guess. I don't want to go back to something that's just like when we were talking about, like, all these eras were fucking hard. Every age is a struggle. Nothing's perfect. And if you live this perfect life that you've already lived, it's going to get boring. I would just want to do something different. So I could totally see going into an outer space and looking at planets or, dinosaurs or doing something completely different. Yeah, I'm on board, but not reliving everything I've already done. No.
I wouldn't want to. But I wouldn't, when I have an opportunity to die, I wouldn't want to live with the anxiety knowing that there's a clock ticking
right.
on, you know what I'm saying, on what I'm trying to do. It's just like, I'm good. Cause there's so much stuff within your consciousness that you're bringing baggage with you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still bringing baggage with you. And it's just like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to just on accident even have anxiety about I'm late paying my cell phone bill. That'll be some random shit that I would think about, like, in paradise. Like, oh shit,
yeah,
AT&T ain't fucking around. But then again, in the 80s or the 90s, we wasn't really rocking too hard with cell phones.
I didn't give a shit about my cell phones, no. But yeah, I would check. I would want to try it under the right conditions. But again, I don't want it to be forever. So the whole forever thing does not appeal to me. Doing something else different and having a cool opportunity to experience something completely, like, impossible. Yeah, I dig that. I would love to go to outer space, because these people are doing something they know they can't die. I mean, they're wrecking their car, they're flying out of the Jeep, and they can't die. She could go out in the ocean and, like, I would do the things that I was always afraid, I've always wanted to do, but afraid I would die or knew I would never get an opportunity to do, like live under the sea or see something that doesn't even exist, like a planet, a made up planet or something crazy. But again, I would want to go, okay, I've got another 80 years. And no, okay, I've got 80 years to do this. Okay, now I've got 79 years. And now I've got 60 years. And we got 10 more years. And then I could pull the plug anytime I want it. Also, just be like, yeah, okay, I'm done. And then just bloop and bleep out of existence. But I would totally give it a shot if those were the options. But otherwise, no, my ass ain't living into the 80s forever.
Meanwhile, Moni and I are at rest, chilling. While you're driving out of airplanes. Yeah,
I'm like, oh, in heaven? Well, I guess I won't be seeing you later. I'm just kidding. All right. So that was interesting. And thank you guys for playing along. And sorry, I'm getting phone calls and I didn't realize my ringer was still on. Okay, with that, so I figured we'd end it talking about all the stuff we've been watching or reading or listening to, and what we liked and didn't like. So Moni, you want to go first?
Sure. I haven't been watching very much. I have apparently become a 12-year-old girl on TikTok that just is like what TikTok controversies are having with these people that I don't even know. But I'm still watching Salem on Hulu. I just finished Lupin, but I'll let Yardley talk about that. My husband loves that show. And I'm going to be starting, I literally watched like the first 30 seconds and got interrupted by a kid, but the Books of Blood, based off of the Clive Barker short story series, which does feature the original Hellraiser story. What got me interested in that is people were like little fanboys on the internet were pissed that they recast. They're going to reboot Hellraiser, which that part's not my favorite thing, but that it's a female Pinhead, and they were like, Pinhead didn't have a gender in the book, like, calm down. So I bought the book and I started reading it, and the book is phenomenal, like the way he writes. And then I'm going to watch the movie and I'll let you know how that is. And so Salem, Lupin, which is amazing.
TikTok.
And lots of TikTok, which I'll tell you guys about in a minute because my show is going to be based off a TikTok thing.
Oh. Okay. Yardley?
Oh, I was on mute. My bad. And so, they just dropped the second half of season 1 of Lupin, which Moni mentioned. It's a Netflix show. And it's a retelling of the classic French story about Arsène Lupin, the world famous gentleman thief and a master of disguise. It's a fun show. I liked it. I really hate, since they dropped the second half, I was like, oh yeah, this is season 2. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is just the other half of season 1. So it's a fun show. It's on Netflix. I watched this show. It was called Sweet Tooth, which is also on Netflix. And
it's based off a comic series. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually like the art, for the comic, but it's a show about a perilous adventure in a post-apocalyptic world. It's about a boy who's half human and half deer, basically searching for a new beginning with a protector. Yeah, it's okay. It's definitely worth a watch, and it's something that you could watch with your, if you have kids. Wouldn't you say, what is because the graphic, I mean, the comics that it wasn't like a mature rating in the comics. Well, was it, Moni?
No, I think it's teen level, and I'm actually pulling it up right now. I haven't read it in a long time. I only read the first issue, but yeah.
Right.
DC.
Well, for
Lemire.
Netflix, it's pretty palatable if you have some young ones you want to watch with it. And while Moni's looking that up, there was a show
Little
called
boy's super cute. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, there was a show called Black Summer. I just saw it like in the queue on Netflix, and apparently it's like I guess like a series is kind of set in the universe of Z Nation, which is something else that I think is on. It's like the zombie show. It's pretty horrible. I don't really recommend Black Summer. I actually watched all the episodes. I mean, it was one of those, it had a lot of potential, but then I think some of the situations were just kind of, I mean, it's a show about the undead or whatever, not necessarily like traditional zombies as we know them, but I would probably, out of 10, I'd give it like a 5.5, 6. I mean, I would say watch it, but there's a lot of stuff that you're going to roll your eyes about, but then there are certain scenes that'll make you say, oh my God, why can't you just do more of that? But anyway, and outside of that, I will plug, next Friday on June 30th, America the Motion Picture drops on Netflix. That is an animated movie about a chainsaw wielding George Washington, who teams up with beer-loving Sam Adams to take down the Brits in a tongue-in-cheek riff on the American Revolution. It's done at the studio that I work at, so watch America the movie next week on Netflix, and let me know how you think about that. They have trailers for America the movie. They're online. They dropped them a couple of weeks ago, and just watch it and let me know what you think. In one of our future shows. So outside of that, I haven't watched a bunch of stuff. It's basically been, basketball and just quirky stuff on Netflix for me. So
nice.
Yep.
Well, I finally got into, getting to watch some movies. I think one night, I had the day off the next day, and I watched 3 movies in that entire evening, and it was like, who am I even anymore? And the whole time I was nervous and uncomfortable because I have been so used to being so busy that it was completely out of normalcy that I didn't have anything to do, and I was watching these movies. So it was kind of funny at my discomfort of what was like completely normal in the past was not so much anymore. So I've started a new podcast that I'm kind of enjoying called Morbid. It's on Spotify, and it's a true crime show with 2 girls, and it's good. It's a better version of Crime Junkies. Like, I like the stories that Crime Junkies tells, but I cannot take how they talk. I can't do it. I've tried when I get really desperate when I'm on the road, and I can't do it. Like, I just cannot take it. So I found Morbid, which for me is a better alternative. So if the Valley Girl talk does not bother you, which is completely fine, to each his own. I'm not trying to bash them. My personal preference is I can't do it. Morbid is kind of the same. They take turns telling a story. So it's not just one person telling the story. They go back and forth kind of like we do, but it's just two of them, and they're really good. And they come off with some really obscure, off-the-wall true crime stories that I have not heard of. So I would recommend them if you're looking for another podcast. I did watch Aliens versus Predator Requiem. Is that what it's called?
Was it any good?
You know what?
I haven't seen it.
There was a lot of people bashing it for what it was for their budget. 'Cause they didn't have a good budget. I did not think it was bad at all. And in fact, it was way better than the first Alien and Predator, in my opinion. It takes place in a small Colorado town, and there is a alien predator, like subspecies of them combined that Alien has created. Well, then their ship crashes onto Earth, and the Predator ship finds out that it's crashed, and he has to go in there, just himself, just one Predator, to wipe out these rapidly multiplying alien Predator mix things. So I thought it was very watchable. I was entertained, and I enjoyed it way better than the first one. So if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, but I definitely thought it was worth the time. Then I watched Lake Mungo, which is an older found footage film from 2008. Everybody was going on and on and on about how amazing this
I have heard such
was.
mixed things. Either it's the best thing or it's the worst thing.
I just didn't get it at all.
No.
I didn't
Okay,
get the
I haven't
hype.
seen it.
But you know what? There are so many people that are obsessed with this film that everybody should give it a shot and see what they think if you haven't watched it, because Moni introduced me to this found footage Facebook group, and all they do is talk about Lake Mungo. And this one guy posted the other night, "Oh, I'm watching Lake Mungo for the first time." And many, many people were commenting underneath, "Oh my gosh, I wish I was you. I wish I was watching it for the very first time." And I'm like, are you guys kidding? Like, this thing must be incredible. And I was just like, okay. Like, it wasn't, it was okay. I mean, I didn't get it. Maybe they overhyped it for me. Maybe I would have enjoyed it if I hadn't been
those
like
discussions too. So now okay. Good to know.
You try it and tell me what you think. I just was underwhelmed. Then I watched a movie called Selfless, which was from 2015 with, Ryan Reynolds, Natalie Martinez, Matthew Good. It was really good. It was kind of a sci-fi action type, and I really enjoyed it. It's about a guy he's wealthy, he's dying from cancer, undergoes a radical medical procedure that transfers his consciousness, speaking of, into the body of a healthy young man. But all is not as it seems when he starts to uncover the mystery of the body's origin and the organization that will kill to protect its cause. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. If you're looking for a nice sci-fi, I was really in the mood for some good sci-fi, obviously, because that's the same night I watched Alien versus Predator. So I was kind of in like, do I want to watch something that I've already seen that I really enjoy that's sci-fi, or do I want to try some new sci-fi? So that's how I ended up watching those two movies back to back. And I would recommend it. I thought it was good. Had never heard of it before. Just kind of stumbled upon it. And then the next movie I watched is Unknown, and it is from 2011, and it's got Liam Neeson in it. When a man awakens from a coma only to discover that someone has taken on his identity, he teams up with a young woman to prove who he is. It was good. It was watchable. Had a twist at the end. I wasn't as good as Selfless as far as I'm concerned, but I love me some Liam Neeson. So I'm willing to give that shit a chance at any possible time. So, he still got it, or he did anyway 10 years ago, and, I enjoyed it. Not as much as I enjoyed Selfless though. So I wouldn't, if I was to choose, I would choose Selfless over, Unknown. Then I watched Nocturnal Animals, and this was from 2016, another movie I have never heard of.
I think I liked that one. Who's in it?
Yeah. It's got Amy Adams, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Michael Sheen. And I really liked it. It's very strange and unusual. And I thought the ending was so clever. A lot of people struggled with the ending, but I loved it because she kind of got what she deserves, but in a very passive aggressive way. When you watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it's a wealthy art gallery owner is haunted by her ex-husband's novel, a violent thriller she interprets as a symbolic revenge tale. So Jake Gyllenhaal is her ex-husband, and she's kind of self-absorbed, dumped somebody that she really had a connection with for money and status. And it's going to come back to bite her in the butt. And then one day, randomly, like 11 years later, she gets this novel mailed to her by her ex-husband, who he wrote it. And she's starting to kind of think that this is his fucked up way of like telling, of relating and correlating weird things in their relationship because she really fucked him over. So it was different, cool. I liked it. It's, has a cool, concept and different. So I would recommend that one.
Nice.
And then I watched The Exorcist 3 because I realized I've never watched The Exorcist 3. I really struggled with it. I know there's a lot of people, a lot of people think that is the best Exorcist of all time. I'm not kidding you. I just don't, it was okay. It's one of those things where if you've got your brain turned off and you don't want to have to sit down and like research a movie to watch, throw it on and watch it. It's palatable, but it's not great.
Okay.
And that's all for me. Look at me watching all these movies.
Look at you, back in the game.
I know. You deserve it, though. You've been working pretty hard.
Let me just tell you two things. One is we had our first guests up at the place, and they completely trashed our fucking house. So that was a great nosedive into the world of rentals. The second thing is I have been looking at this comforter called the Coma Inducer for a long time. And I was telling Rick about it, and I was like, I'm very intrigued by this comforter. It's called Coma Inducer. I came home today.
Is it a weighted thing?
It's not. It's not weighted. It's super soft. Oh. And I came home from work today, and it was on our bed. I didn't even know we were it. And I have been laying here this whole episode in my Coma Inducer comforter, and I'm really enjoying it. And I got it on Overstock. It's not that expensive. So, look up Coma Inducer if you're looking for new bedding, and you might check them out because it's like furry, almost like, but it's not furry, if that makes any sense. It's like super, super soft, and they have cute little styles. So anyway, that's all I got.
Well, that's a lot. It's good stuff. Is the next show me? I believe it is.
Yes.
Okay. Well, in that case, we're going to do some more dishy true crime stories. And this time, all credit to True Crime Cam on TikTok. She does 1 minute true crime stories, and some of the but she's done like several parts on some of them. But I want to know more, and so I am going to cover some of the stories that she's inspired me to do. I may have to check out the podcast that Chrissy's talking about as well, because I don't think we're going to do a deep dive into any one. We're going to do a few like we did before. But it's going to be a good time, and if you're on the TikTok because you're a teenage girl like myself, check out True Crime Cam.
Awesome. All right.
What's up?
Anybody else got anything to add? You want to add your socials and how to reach you?
I'm at Moni Bear across the board, and you can also check out what Creators Assemble is doing at creatorsassemble.org.
I am militant_marker across the board.
I am Creepin' at Christy on Instagram, Creepin' at Christy on TikTok, and you can find us on Facebook, and Creepin_it on Twitter. And if you're looking for a gorgeous mountain vacation home, please search Altitude Adjustment in Blairsville, Georgia, and you will see my place, and you're more than welcome to rent it. So with that, guys, as we
don't trash it.
And please don't fucking trash it. So that's a whole other story. That's a whole other horror story from another day. But, with that, guys, thanks for sticking in there. And I hope now my shit will get back to normal and we can get things, posting a little more regularly again. And, with that, y'all, catch you on the flip side.
sound of a beginning reverberates in my ears. It came quietly in a flash. Happy birthday,